There we go. Good afternoon. It is Friday, October 15th. I'm Colleen Cook, and I'm the Director of Partnerships with the National Parents Union. And I'm here today with Dr. Paul Bloomberg of the Core Collaborative, and also a member of our board of directors. And he is in sunny Palm Springs, California.
Hooray, hooray.
I think, hooray. Yeah, I'm freezing here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I think as you're getting ready to go swimming this afternoon, I'm thinking
finally not 122 degrees here.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, do I turn on the heat yet? Do I turn on the heat? Do I bite that bullet and turn on the heat? So we'll see what comes this afternoon. As you're swimming in the pool, just think about that.
I am. I woke up to my husband at 6:30 a.m. Painting the coping of the pool. which I didn't even know what a coping was.
Okay.
But it's the border of the pool, and I'm like, why are you doing this at 6:30 a.m.?
So it's dry by the time you go swimming, right?
I don't know. I'm looking out there. He's testing colors. We bought a fixer-upper, so I don't.
Oh, that's right. You did say that.
I don't think he's happy with the color. I can kind of tell.
Well, I'll tell you this much: you have a pool, and I think that is that's golden in California.
It's golden. And I don't know how you can live in Palm Springs without a pool, but I don't, right? But people do, but not very many.
Yeah. I had mentioned, as we were talking earlier, my son was out there, and he was at 29 Palms. So they're not really into the whole let's all go have a pool party thing. They're
no.
They're kind of more, let's go sleep with rattlesnakes. And
yeah, totally. I'm with you.
See if the coyote stole my stuff. He did send me a picture one day. They were doing something. He's like, dang, coyote stole my stuff. The coyotes came and kind of ravaged their camp, So there's no swimming pools.
I guess we got a neighborhood app thing with our Google Nest, and I guess coyotes walk all around the neighborhoods here. Coyotes and really? Bobcats. So my husband's like, now we were going for a walk with us, and he's like freaked out. I'm like, we weren't freaked out for a whole year. We're fine.
Right. There's something about knowing, though.
I know. I wish we never would have looked at that app.
Yeah, because where I live here in Oklahoma, you can hear the coyotes every night, and it's really amazing. Yeah. I like to listen to them until you're like, wow, they're really, really close. And
I know
part of my fence was down for 3 weeks. They were doing some line work and stuff. And I'm like, I know one day I'm going to walk out and I'm going to have a coyote right in my face. But people always say they're more afraid of you.
I know, everyone says that. That's what I keep telling Tony.
I'm like, but if you knew what the dreams I like, coyotes are one of my fears. So, and if bobcats start coming around, I don't know about that.
I'm with you.
I don't think they're very afraid of you.
I think they all are, but I don't know. That's only what
I don't know. I don't know. I've watched one too many Discovery shows about bobcats. And so, but you're there in Palm Springs and doing your work. And we had talked, you had moved from New York to Palm Springs recently. Yep. And tell us a little bit about yourself. And the work that you do.
I'm Paul Bloomberg. I'm the CEO and founder of the Core Collaborative. We have two sons, Alex and Taylor, who live in California. One lives in now down in San Diego in UTC area. He just took a new job. And then Alex, our oldest, is living with us. Right now. He lost his job in the pandemic, and so he went back to school to San Diego State. So and he works for us part-time, but so we run a consulting company. There's about 75 consultants that work nationally and internationally, and kind of what we do is everything that we do is about bringing learners to the center. And getting them to take ownership of their learning through self-assessment, peer assessment, goal setting, and reflection. And so that's kind of how the company started. And then it just grew a little faster than we thought. And now we offer a lot of professional learning, from restorative practices to equity work to, I mean, you name it, we do it, in terms of partnering with schools across the country. But we're really excited to be back in California because we were living in Brooklyn for the last few years. Yeah.
I don't blame you about being back in California, but also being closer to your boys.
That was the reason. After a year and a half of the pandemic and not seeing them, we found a house online and didn't even see it and just bought it and moved. And it not only saved us a ton of money, but it got us closer to them, which is great.
I was just talking about that last night. I was talking about when I was getting ready to move out and looking for a home, and then it became like realtors could not show any homes, so you had to do it all online. And I was like, there is no way I was buying a house sight unseen. I just,
and there's
I
no
can't.
homes. Like,
Yeah, well, that was a problem too. So I ended up, I found a neighborhood and I built, but because they let us come and actually look at the stuff. I needed to see it. So you bought this home sight unseen. It would be tough, but it sounds like it's working out. You have
it is. We love it, and it's a fixer upper, so we've been fixing upping a lot, and it's kind of taken over our lives. But I think it's a nice diversion.
And you're near your boys. You're
and having Alex literally in the room down the hall here is pretty awesome, after especially not seeing him for so long. So
yes, I know that feeling. My middle child, Spencer, he did his 4 years in the Marine Corps, and he's came home week before last, and it's just kind of nice having the kids. I mean, they've resumed their normal sibling culture, if you will.
It's pretty great. I mean, we don't want him to leave. I'm sure he'll move out, but but there might be a hang on to him.
It's just nice to have them home. There's just something comforting about having them nearby and knowing that they're there, and seeing them every day, and those little things that I think we take for granted a little bit
I think it's just seeing the world through a different perspective too. Like, it's fun to talk to, or not even always fun, but definitely interesting to hear their perception of the world, because it's just, they grew up in a recession. They grew up, what they've grown up with is just so different. I think my own
dinner here certainly isn't boring. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, definitely.
We were having dinner the other night, and I just between the 22-year-old and the 17-year-old, I'm just like, I just give up. I'm just going to eat my dinner and just
I know.
and just enjoy it. But they're the reason these kids, I know my kids were the reason that I began advocacy and advocacy work, and I can imagine that at the end of the day, this is why you do the work that you do.
That's why my husband and I founded the Core Collaborative, is really in their name, because we watched how the school system didn't really bend or personalize to them. It was all about them trying to make the school happy, and they had all these unique talents and gifts that we just felt were never really cultivated or identified. And it just was sad to see them go through what they went through. And I have a doctorate in education, and I didn't feel like I could even help.
Right.
And then you just think of the other parents that don't have the resources, or families that have the resources that we have, and I couldn't even make a dent in supporting him, or Taylor, our youngest. And it's just, that was the number one reason, and the only reason why we founded the Core Collaborative back in the day. So, and
that's a great reason. And you mentioned, what about the parents that don't have those degrees and aren't ingrained in the system like that? They have full-time jobs that they have to work to feed their family, and they
Yeah.
can't. And I have discussions a lot. It's like, well, that's the parents' job. It's like, okay, but like, we send our kids to school trusting, we
Yeah.
trust. And when you're working, you can't be in the school like monitoring and doing all this stuff. That's what
Yeah.
you trust the school system to do for your child, is
Yeah.
to ensure they're safe, ensure they're learning, and put them on that path and that plan. And um sometimes I think it gets a little blurred about the responsibilities. And of course, as a parent, our children are our ultimate
Yeah.
responsibility, but there's that trust that
Well, I
we
think there's
we
also a level of blame where the
yeah,
schools blame the parents
right,
for the discrepancies or the learning gaps or whatever that the kids have. But the way I kind of look at it is all the kids come with a lot of strengths. And if we can identify those and build on those and kind of change the model from this deficit thinking to like more strengths based, I don't know. I just, as a principal too, I just saw parents getting ripped apart, and it wasn't acceptable at our
right,
school, but that takes a long time to build into a culture of a school, especially a school that has been used to, the blame game,
right.
and
Well,
but you have to kind of look at yourselves and say, what are we going to do to serve the families and the students? We have this wrong. We're here to serve them, not
yeah,
the other way. And I think most teachers get that. They really
yeah.
do. And they're in it for the right reason. But the
But it's
system and the politics
exactly,
get in the way. It's
yeah.
not necessarily, I don't think, usually a school issue. It's a greater state and federal issue that has created this mess.
Right. It's like it has to be a shift in mindset and a shift in
Does.
culture. And sometimes when certain schools go do that, like, it doesn't always go over very well in the bigger picture with
Oh,
the state, or the state superintendents, or whoever's kind of over the big picture. And it's really hard to change. It's very easy to go to what's comfortable, and even though it's uncomfortable, it's what we know, right? It's
yeah.
even when I took my kids out of traditional school and had them at home, and we were doing a virtual model, which we had a lot of flexibility. It took me, I was a product of public school and Catholic school, and so very,
Right.
regimented. And just when my kids didn't, my son's like, I just want to do all my math today. And I'm like, well, no, we got to do it. And then it was like, if that's what he wants to do, let him do it. If he likes doing math and he wants to do 3 days of math and knock the other things out, let him go with it.
Well, in the world of work, that's kind of how it is, right? Like,
yeah,
when you kind of think about it, you have all these projects coming at you in your job and my job and pretty much any job. And you're kind of left to your devices on when to do them. I think other jobs, maybe not so much, but if
right,
we're really trying to prepare kids for the jobs that they're going to have, making hopefully above six figures, because you kind of need that, it seems like, anymore
right,
in this world,
right,
I mean, anywhere, like,
right.
they need to have high paying jobs, and those high paying jobs, they don't monitor people, they leave people to make decisions on their own, and they want people that have emotional intelligence, and they want people that know how to collaborate and work together.
Right.
And that's just kind of where we're shooting, but we don't do that in the schools. The kids are still sitting in rows. And even if they're not sitting in rows, they're sitting in pods, but they're still working like they were sitting in rows.
Right.
So they just changed the configuration of the class, but they're doing
Right.
the same old thing that we used to do.
Right. Right. And it's not that way. I find it interesting,
Yeah.
I have my oldest is 24, and my 22-year-old, and it seems like with my 22-year-old's class, they were very socially, the parents were very socially engaged, if you will. And,
Yeah.
we got the updates on Johnny, and all these kids were like, oh, they got into this college and they're going to be this, and the kid said, nope, I'm going to do this. And just to see the kids that were great students, great students, smart, great, checked every box,
Yeah.
go off to the university. But then while they're, they found their true self and they left.
Yeah.
And they went and explored either a trade or just went out and, started a business, and they might be struggling, but they're doing exactly what they want to do. And it did not check the box, like the traditional box.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, like, I was really lucky because my mom and dad raised me to really like do what you love to do. So I started out as a saxophone player. I have my master's in music performance. And so I feel like with Alex and Taylor, like they both did not do well in traditional high school. And they went to a very high performing high school, right? And they didn't like it. They didn't find it relevant. They didn't find it engaging at all. Alex would come home and say, everything I could learn on YouTube, and it would be more interesting. Now he's in a non-traditional at San Diego State. He's in like a digital marketing boot camp. It's a full year program. He loves it. And he's getting an A. And this is a kid that the teacher called them lazy, unmotivated, you name it. You could name the derogatory term. We heard it. Right. And now he's pulling straight A's in college. So like, there's no connect to reality. Like, how could this brilliant human being, which I believe all kids are, be labeled in this horrible way by adults? And then you wonder why he or she is just acting exactly like the label you give them.
Exactly.
And it's like, what do you expect to get in return when you don't?
You've already told him what he's going to be.
Yeah, when you don't look at them for all the strengths that they have. And so I think like our company really is all strengths based. And I think that's why we've done really well, because we don't go into systems and rip them apart. We don't go into any school and lay out all the things they're doing wrong. We look at the strengths that they have and build on those. And we do the same thing with our kids, and we do the same thing with our consultants, and it works.
That's amazing. And we probably need more of that in that mindset. It's really difficult to sit back and kind of know, I think I'm pretty strong and a strong advocate for my kids, and have been for a long time. And I see kids like, you can walk into a classroom and you can kind of see the dynamic and how things are. And within a few minutes observing interaction, you can tell the kid that maybe the teacher doesn't like and, isn't very fond of, but you talk with the kid and they're not a bad kid.
No, I don't think I've never met a student that really isn't brilliant. It's just a matter of like talking to them and getting to know them and understanding what they think they're good at, because I guarantee if you can get a student to articulate what they're good at, you'll start to see those strengths live everywhere.
Right. And they light up a little bit.
What always breaks my heart is just the kids that I have talked to that don't feel that they're good at anything.
Right.
And that's a system. That's a system that has done that to them. That's not one particular teacher or one. It's the greater system at large that focuses on deficits so much, or ticking the boxes, like you said, like this is what a perfect student is. And I don't I don't even know what that means.
It's we see so many, and I look back just when I was growing up and knowing some of the things that I know doing this work. And I think back, wow, how different would this kid's life have been?
Yeah.
Because he was a unique child. He was very gifted in so many other ways, and it wasn't math. And that's okay. And we have to be okay with saying that's okay. But, in the 70s and 80s, that's not how school was.
No,
it definitely was not how school was.
Come on, even now, we have schools that are just emphasizing social emotional learning.
Right.
When like back when I was a beginning teacher back in Denver, we had a social emotional learning block that just got ripped out of the schools when No Child Left Behind happened. And only now we're kind of realizing that it's important, but it took a pandemic for us to realize that when kids have been in pain and suffering, and teachers and parents and families forever, people go through trauma. We were just talking about, the trauma of kids in Oklahoma with tornadoes, and has that ever really been talked about, or what do we do to heal that?
Well, we have
understand it even.
we do the typical reaction, with so many things. Even with the pandemic, we address it for, we'll have professionals in house for the next 2 days. Well, great, because the kids haven't even processed yet that they're going to need to process something, and it's definitely not going to be over 2 days. And we need to make a better habit and just ritual, or routine of that being a daily thing. Because if it's not storm related trauma or pandemic related trauma, our kids are facing so much. And I look at my childhood, and so much of everything you go through was so isolated, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have this open conversation like we do now. Well, we have that, but still the kids aren't seeking. They might be hearing, and they're processing, and they're seeing all these things that are not going right in their life. And if they don't have that outlet, and so I would like to see that become more the norm. And the district we live in, and this is like a huge reason why I moved down to this little, I call it a little podunk town. It's just a little map dot. But they've really maximized their resources here, and they're just kind of unique in seeing the needs of the kids. And the kids, for the most part, we still are very sports minded and suffer from that, but they're very student focused. And the relationships there's
so many. That's the thing, is public education also gets a really bad rap. There's so many incredible schools out there that always are striving to do the right thing and become better. And I'm really lucky because I primarily only get to work with schools like that,
Well, they seek you out, right? Do the schools seek you out? You're not going, hey, I heard a rumor.
No, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think certainly we attract a certain school or system that kind of has the same values as ours. Like, we really believe that if you trust the kids, they will lead the way, and you need to have relevant instruction that makes sense to them, and they need to know why they're learning what they're learning, and they need to be able to articulate what their goals are and where they're at and what their next step is. That's like turning education on its, that's not how we were taught. But I think that the schools that enter the partnership kind of know that we're going to be probably partners for 5-6 years. This change doesn't happen in, like you said, 3 days, that we're going to do gradual change. But we really get lucky because a lot of our principals, superintendents, they'll focus on changing one thing for 3 and 4 years, and that's unheard of in education. Usually the goals change every year. Well, no one gets good at anything when the goals are changing every year. And the teachers are usually the one left out. Like, now what are we doing? And it changes and shifts with new leaders, with new superintendents, with new federal legislation. And so you never feel like you're doing the right thing. But I think there are courageous leaders out there that point their system in a direction that they know is good for kids, and there's a moral purpose behind it, and also these things accelerate learning. And but there's just not enough leaders out there that stay the course and bring the community in so they can stay the course.
So now, when you've worked with a school, and you work with the school, or do you work with the district? Have you worked with an entire district?
Yeah, so like we'll work at the district level, where we could work with school boards, we could work with community partnerships. We can work at all levels of the system. Sometimes we just work at the school level, which kind of depends on the makeup of the school districts. Like in New York City, where we do a lot of work, that's decentralized. So all the money funnels to the schools. You know, there's not really bigger structures there. So we do a lot of work at the school level, but even there, we do a lot of work at the district level. And then in some places, we'll work at all levels. And then some schools just hire us to work at the school. So it just kind of depends on what they want. Usually we end up in a district with 1 or 2 schools, and then it just grows. And then we'll eventually end up working with everyone. Yeah.
That was kind of my next follow-up was, so when you work with a school, how does it affect the others around it? And are people seeing the change and going, you're onto something, and try to incorporate that into their school? And what kind of feedback? Now I'm going to assume you do some follow-up with these districts.
Oh, yeah. So our average
after.
Yeah, so the average contract, which is very different than other professional learning work. We don't really go out and do a 2-day workshop. We don't wouldn't even take that job. We'll assess the system. We'll talk to them about like, hey, you have way too many things going on. This is not a good fit because this is going to require a lot of attention, and a lot of systems will come back to us in a year, or they'll say, hey, can you help us look at what we're doing and audit things? And, you know, so we can focus on this, but usually our contracts run 7-8 years, you know, for sure 3, you know, but like I have contracts that I've had for a decade, and maybe the role that I have is different. Like in the beginning, I might've been doing a lot more face-to-face and technical assistance and helping them rethink curriculum and coherence and bringing in family, all that. But then I gradually released to more of a coaching role where I can like connect with people on Zoom, or maybe I'll go out, walk the school, meet with different teacher groups. So I think the level of support changes the longer we're there, or the focus. Like we might go in with an equity focus and then it might move to assessment. But then we'll take the equity focus and say, well, let's look at our assessment practices through the lens of equity. Or maybe we'll go in with assessment and then we'll move to equity. You know what I mean? It just kind of, people come and say, this is our need. And then we diagnose it through a bunch of different metrics or surveys or things like that, talking to teachers, talking to kids, talking to families, whatever. And then we'll create a plan with the stakeholders and co-design that with them. But yeah, it's all job embedded. And that sort of coaching is the kind of coaching that the research says has the biggest bang for its buck. Like doing a teacher workshop and not doing follow-up and coaching and making sure that what you're doing is actually living in the classroom. Like that's kind of the problem with education, is we go to all these workshops and then nothing gets back to the kids. You know,
I think of how many conferences we've gone to in just different things. And, you know, usually there's like maybe one thing from the 2 or 3 days that you go that really grabs you, that you go back and you actually look in the notebook that you've taken notes in, and you invest your time into that. And, you know, your talk about your contracts just is kind of like the actual visual example of when we go and we advocate for students, and, you know, they're like, oh, we'll get to that. And how long it actually takes to incorporate change and to see, and if we're to become, and we don't, you know, when parents say our kids don't have that kind of time, like we don't have that kind of time, and how wonderful for the students that are in the districts that you've worked with, that they're actually going to benefit from the intentional changes that are happening in that
and we
school.
Monitor it. Like we speak to the students all the time about what the goals are. So if these are the goals of the school, like how are we doing? You know, and we get kids to walk the classrooms with us and look for the things that we believe are going to help them learn more. And we keep the kids we're very transparent about, hey, we're studying self-assessment because it accelerates your learning. So we're teaching you how to self-assess and be truthful and honest about where you're at, because that's going to help you in the long run. And so we're very transparent with the kids about it. It's not like this secret meeting where where a student site council meets on the side and creates the plan and nobody really knows what the plan is. We try to break down all the barriers so everybody knows what the plan is, because that's what you need to keep people accountable, right?
Right.
Like if you want to meet your goals, the more people that know what the goal is, the better.
That's why they say when you start like a weight loss program, right? They say tell at least one person so you're held accountable to kind of what you're working on. I usually like, well, I'll wait just in case I fail. But
no, we do the same thing in all of our goal setting work with kids. It's all about, what does the research say about goal setting? It says you have to have a partner. When you have a partner, you're more accountable. And so we do all that work inside of schools. And because number one, it more than doubles and triples the speed of learning. And those practices don't live in schools. They just don't.
So I'm curious, when you meet with some of these kids, do you try to meet with some of the same students over and over? And when you do that, like, what do you notice about the child that, from your first encounter and then incorporating them in this process? What kind of changes do you see in just their demeanor and their pride and their self-confidence and things? Because I would think that would be a huge boost, like really add to their self-worth and their
I think that's exactly what you see. So we have some videos from Patrides, and we have a YouTube channel, the Core Collaborative YouTube channel. You can just Google it, but you can see the kids in action. But you'll even see kids that are younger and now older in these videos. And what I've really noticed in one particular school, because I think they were smarter about getting those early videos and then tracking. Now we have a bunch of schools in Idaho that we're going to track the kids' progress through interviews so we can see this evolution. But what you do see is that you see the dispositions change. For them not feeling as confident, or maybe not having as much efficacy or confidence to speak even about their learning, you see that shift fast. Where the more that they're brought into it and asked, their confidence shoots up. And the more that they get rehearsal time and practice around talking about what's important to them and why their goals are important, the more humanity comes out of them. It's like, I don't know, you just see other characteristics in them in their journey to understand themselves. And I think that's kind of the thing that, I don't know, I was on the road 200 days a year for almost 10 years doing this work. And my husband was on the road with me the last 5. And I think the only thing that has driven me is the kids' voices. Is seeing the transformation in them and wanting that for every single kid, that we can get that too.
I just think about just the impact of that, of those interviews and that incorporation of in valuing what their input, what that alone has done to change the trajectory of some students' lives. Because so many of us, we just go through, and I just, I grew up in the time where children are to be seen and not heard, right? And then you get out into real life and you're expected to have a voice, right? Because you kind of have to, you're your own human and you have to speak for yourself and stand up for yourself. But just that piece of it alone, just that really research piece, right? And input piece.
It is. And people don't recognize that level of research and getting to know the kids in that way only builds trust with them. And actually the research is really clear. We excel as human beings when people take interest in us and care about us and care about our goals and want to make sure that the goals that we have for ourselves are relevant and real. Like, of course, I mean, you don't need research to tell us that that's going to accelerate student learning. It's the right thing to do. Like, morally,
if only, right?
morally.
And that's just the piece of the work that you do, and that there's just so much more that it just speaking with you now, just it's like, wow, the impact of this work that you're doing in schools, and not necessarily doing in schools, you're doing with the schools for them.
Yeah, because I would say, like, wholeheartedly, we might be the idea people coming in and the cheerleaders and coaching people and help them to see, but we can't take credit for the work that the teachers and the kids and the parents are doing.
Yeah.
That success is theirs. We are super grateful that we get to be a part of it, but they're the ones sticking with it and putting it into action and not losing sight of the goal, right?
Yeah, because change is difficult.
It's very difficult.
I mean, we know that from just on a personal level. I think all of us have tried to break a habit or start new habits or whatever, and that change is difficult. But to be in a system that is sometimes the heartbeat of the community, and everybody's got an input, and some people just, that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way we're going to continue to do it. And then you bring in change that is unlike any other change, and to stick with it and really put in the work, that's amazing. But I'm going to go to your YouTube channel, because I'm very curious on that human behavior part of it, and seeing the kids, because I just know that being a parent, right, and sometimes you just get, we just do what I tell you, we got this to do. But when you really sit down and listen to your kids, and last night I mentioned I have a 17-year-old daughter, and she's a teenage girl, so we do our stuff. But we started to have a conversation with her, and just to see her loosen up and just really get into it and get comfortable, and then just going, and oh yeah, and just it's so important that we give them, our children,
voice,
that support to do that, and let them have their voice and be heard. I don't think I ever said it and had conversations like that with my parents, because we just didn't. That's not how we rolled.
No, and I don't think, like, when I model these interviews for teachers and principals, they're like, wow, we didn't even know that. But I'm like, I think we just have to slow down. I think if one thing I think everyone can value after the pandemic is the connections that we have that are really important to us, and we need to connect more with one another and talk and listen. And I don't know, that's what drives us in doing the work, and we love it. So,
well, I know that I am extremely curious to look at some of your work examples, because I think it's great. And I think anytime that you put children, they really are incredible little humans.
They
right?
are. They really are.
They know so much more than we do. Really, if we listen to our children a little bit more, we would learn so much more than we learn by knowing it all. So I'm grateful for the work that you do, because I know that you're impacting lives, and just the interviews alone, like, have got to be just a tremendous difference in these kids' lives, just because you're giving them the credit and the value that they so deserve. And I look forward to learning that. I encourage everyone to go and take a look. As you said, Core Collaborative on YouTube.
On YouTube.
See
and I'll put some links on the NPU page as well. To get you there.
We'll get everyone directed there. And so if a parent's seeing this, and this is this something they could bring to the PTA or to the school board and make those suggestions? And
they certainly can, and they can go to our website. It's thecorecollaborative.com, and they can contact there. They can go to any social media platform and look for me, and they can direct message me there personally if they want. But a lot of parent groups have brought our work into systems, and that's the best. Those are the best ways to come into a system, is because the parents want that for their kids. So so it would be an honor.
That is really amazing. I am so grateful. I don't want to keep you too long from the pool because I know that.
I know. And I have another consulting call. So yeah.
Yes. So I am so grateful for the time that you gave us today and to sit and talk with you. You're such a joy. You really just talking the minute you got online, it was just
I've enjoyed getting to know you too. So it was really fun just to hang out.
So if I'm ever in Palm Springs, I might be plopping in the pool. I'm just going to say that.
Exactly. And when I come to Oklahoma, we'll have dinner.
I'll take you to some great places for dinner, and I'll reserve a spot in the storm shelter if we need it.
Okay.
So thank you again. And we will have those links for you. I hope you have a great weekend.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.